The 38th floor of Carter Tech's Atlanta Tower gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, the silence broken only by the rhythmic slosh of a mop hitting marble. Ava Jackson, disguised as Lisa the janitor, gripped the handle tight, her faded gray uniform hanging loose over her frame. At 27, she'd traded her sleek blazers and heels for a messy bun and sneakers, her sharp brown eyes hidden behind a tired squint. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she scrubbed, the late-night air thick with the tang of bleach. Then came the sound, crisp, arrogant footsteps cutting through the quiet. Thomas Reed, operations manager, strode in, his tailored suit screaming money, a steaming coffee cup clutched in his manicured hand. At 50, his graying temples and smug grin marked him as the kind of guy who'd never lifted a broom. He stopped dead, looming over Ava, his shadow swallowing her clean patch of floor. "This is a disgrace," he barked, his voice a low growl, jabbing a finger at a speck only he could see. "You call this clean?" Ava froze, the mop dripping in her hands, her pulse quickening. "I just mopped it, sir," she said, her voice soft but steady, the meek Lisa mask she'd perfected. "It's spotless." Thomas's lip curled into a sneer, his eyes glinting with malice. "Spotless? This is Carter Tech, not a gas station bathroom." He stepped closer, coffee sloshing in his cup, the heat radiating off it. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he dumped the whole thing, scalding black liquid splashing across the marble, splattering Ava's sneakers, soaking her pants, burning her shins. She yelped, stumbling back, the sting biting deep, but it was his cold laugh that sliced through her. "Now it's a mess," he said, tossing the cup into the puddle with a mocking clink. "Clean it up, or don't bother clocking in tomorrow." He turned, his polished loafers smearing coffee tracks across her hard work, swaggering off like a king who'd just crushed a peasant. Ava stood there, soaked and shaking, the bitter smell choking the air. Her fists clenched, coffee dripping from her cuffs, pooling around her feet. The hallway was a tomb, no one to see, no one to care. But her eyes blazed, a fire sparking beneath the janitor's mask. She yanked her phone from her pocket, her wet fingers slipping as she dialed. "Dad," she hissed when Henry Jackson answered, her whisper sharp as a blade. "This place is rotten. They're begging for a reckoning." Thomas hit the elevator button, chuckling to himself, already forgetting the nobody he'd drenched. He didn't know that nobody was Ava Jackson, daughter of Carter Tech's CEO, and she was about to brew a storm hotter than his spilled coffee. The Carter Tech Tower loomed over Atlanta's skyline, a glass giant reflecting the city's glow, its 42 floors a testament to decades of grit and genius. Inside, the executive suites buzzed with the hum of ambition, but at night, the lower halls echoed with the quiet scrape of Ava Jackson's mop. She pushed her cleaning cart down the 38th floor, her gray janitor uniform sagging, coffee stains still darkening her pant legs from Thomas Reed's stunt hours ago. At 27, Ava was no stranger to power. Her usual world was boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. But tonight, she was Lisa, the invisible new hire with calloused hands and a borrowed badge. She'd only been at it 3 days, but the ache in her shoulders already felt permanent. Her sneakers squeaked on the marble, her ponytail loose from hours of scrubbing. The coffee had cooled, leaving her legs sticky and her pride bruised, but her mind was sharp, replaying Thomas's sneer, his casual cruelty. She'd wanted to snap back, to drop the mop and fire him on the spot, but that wasn't the plan. Not yet. Instead, she'd called her dad, Henry Jackson, the man who'd built Carter Tech from a garage startup into a tech empire, worth $6 billion. Ava paused by a window, the city lights sprawling below, and pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen lit up her face. Smooth skin, high cheekbones, eyes that could command a room but now softened into Lisa's tired stare. "Dad," she'd said earlier, her voice low. "This place is rotten. They're begging for a reckoning." Henry's reply had been calm, steady, the deep rumble she'd known since childhood. "Stick with it, Ava. We need the truth." Henry Jackson, 62, was a legend in Silicon South. His close-cropped gray hair and broad shoulders carried the weight of a man who'd broken barriers as one of the few black CEOs in tech. 30 years ago, he'd started Carter Tech with a beat-up laptop and $3,000 borrowed from his mom, turning a dream of affordable software into a global name. His office walls boasted Forbes covers and handshake photos with presidents, but his laugh lines told the real story. Decades of sleepless nights and unshakable resolve. 6 months back, a heart attack had nearly taken him out. His doctor's orders clear: cut the 80-hour weeks, or don't expect a 63rd birthday. That scare had flipped everything. Succession talks, once a distant someday, became urgent. Ava, his only kid, was the obvious choice. Stanford grad at 22, VP of Innovation by 25, a tech prodigy who'd launched Carter Tech's green software line and landed on 30 under 30 lists. But Henry wasn't sold, not fully. Over dinner at his sleek Buckhead mansion, the city twinkling beyond the glass, he'd laid it out plain. "Ava, you're brilliant," he'd said, his fork tapping his plate, his brown eyes locking hers. "You've got the brain, the vision, but you've never seen this company from the ground." Ava had frowned, her wine glass pausing midair. "The ground? I've run divisions, Dad. I know the numbers, the strategy." "Numbers don't talk back," Henry cut in, his voice firm but warm. "Strategy doesn't mop floors. I built this place cleaning cables, coding at 3 a.m., answering phones. You've only seen the top. Shiny reports, polished meetings. I've heard whispers, Ava. The culture's slipping. Arrogance, cliques, people treated like dirt. But they smile for the boss's kid. You can't lead what you don't know." The challenge stung, but Ava never backed down from one. She'd leaned forward, her jaw set. "What's the play then?" Henry's grin was slow, proud. "Go undercover. 2 weeks, night shift, janitorial crew. No VIP pass, no shortcuts. See what I can't, what they hide from us." She'd agreed that night, and by Monday, Ava Jackson was gone. Her tailored wardrobe swapped for thrift store threads, her polished nails clipped short, her designer glasses traded for cheap contacts. Her hair, usually blown out straight, coiled into natural curls under a plain scarf. Henry had looped in a buddy at Proclean, a third-party service, to rig her cover. Lisa Brown, new hire, no ties to Carter Tech's HR. To the world, she was just another face pushing a broom. Now, 3 nights in, Ava leaned against her cart, the coffee-soaked floor behind her gleaming again. She'd clocked the layout: executive suites on 38 to 42, marketing on 30, sales on 25, all pristine on paper but rotting underneath. Thomas wasn't the only one. She'd caught snide looks from suits who stepped over her like furniture, heard whispers of deals and disdain. Her hands, raw from bleach, gripped a rag as she wiped down a trash bin, her Stanford ring stashed at home, replaced by a cheap silver band. Back at their Buckhead place, Henry paced his office, his phone buzzing with Ava's update. He'd known the company had cracks, turnover spikes, hushed complaints, but not this. Not coffee poured on his daughter like she was trash. His chest tightened, not from his heart this time, but from a fury he hadn't felt since the early days, scrapping for respect in rooms that didn't want him. 2 weeks, he'd told her. Get me proof. Then we fix it. Ava nodded to herself, alone in the tower, her mop moving again. She wasn't just Henry's heir. She was his weapon, forged in boardrooms but sharpened in the shadows. Thomas thought he'd won a cheap laugh tonight. He didn't know Ava was counting every second, every slight, building a case that'd bury him, and anyone else who'd forgotten what Carter Tech stood for. The clock on the 38th floor of Carter Tech's Atlanta Tower ticked past midnight, its faint glow the only sign of time in the dim hallway. Ava Jackson, cloaked in her Lisa Brown disguise, dragged her cleaning cart along the marble, the wheels squeaking faintly under the weight of bleach bottles and rags. Her gray uniform hung loose. The coffee stains from Thomas Reed's attack 3 nights ago, faded but still visible under the harsh lights. At 27, her hands, once soft from boardroom pens, were now rough, knuckles red from scrubbing, nails chipped from wrestling trash bins. She'd been at it a week, her body adapting to the grind. The ache in her shoulders had dulled to a constant throb, her calves tight from hours on her feet. Her sneakers, cheap and thin-soled, squeaked with every step, the sound swallowed by the tower's eerie quiet. Night shift was a different beast. No bustling suits, no ringing phones, just the hum of HVAC and the occasional clack of a late worker's keyboard. Ava moved like a ghost, her mop tracing perfect lines across the floor, her scarf slipping as sweat beaded on her forehead. The first few nights had been a shock. She'd expected hard work. Her Stanford days had taught her grit, but not this invisibility. Executives still lingering past 10 p.m. stepped around her cart without a glance, their polished shoes clicking past as if she were a fixture. Once, a marketing guy in a blue blazer bumped her elbow, spilling her bucket, and kept walking, muttering about a deadline. Another night, 2 sales reps leaned against a wall she'd just wiped, debating a client pitch, their voices loud and careless. "They're lowballing us," one said, tossing a gum wrapper onto her clean floor. "Make them sweat." Ava bent to pick it up, her jaw tight, but they didn't notice, didn't care. She learned fast. Janitors weren't people here. They were shadows, meant to vanish when the lights came on. Her cart became her shield, a rolling barricade she maneuvered to avoid collisions. She'd memorized the routine: empty trash by 11, mop hauls by 12, polish glass by 1, each task a silent test of endurance. Her phone stayed tucked in her pocket, silent, a lifeline to Henry she only used when the coast was clear. "They don't see me, Dad," she'd texted after night 2, her fingers stiff from cold water. "It's like I don't exist." His reply was quick: "Keep watching. They'll show you everything." And they did. Thomas Reed wasn't a fluke. He was a symptom. Night 4, she'd caught him in his office, barking into a phone about a delayed shipment, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Tell them I don't care. Get it here or they're done." He'd slammed the receiver down, then spotted Ava vacuuming outside his door. "What are you staring at?" he snapped, his gray eyes narrowing. "This carpet's a mess. Do it again." She'd nodded, her vacuum humming over an already spotless rug, her stomach twisting as he smirked and turned away. By night 6, the pattern was clear. Thomas prowled the upper floors like a king, his inspections a ritual of control. He'd run a finger along a windowsill, hold it up to the light, and grunt, sloppy, even when it gleamed. Once he'd kicked over a trash can she'd just emptied, papers scattering across the hall. "Missed some," he'd said, walking off, leaving her to kneel and gather the mess. Ava bit her tongue, her Lisa voice murmuring, "Yes, sir," while her real self burned to shove the can back in his face. Others joined the chorus. Claire Evans, a mid-30s marketing lead with a tight bun and sharper heels, caught Ava wiping a conference table on night 5. "You're in my way," Claire said, dropping a stack of binders onto the wet surface, ink smudging as they slid. "Move faster. I've got a presentation tomorrow." Ava stepped back, rag dripping, and watched Claire stride off, leaving coffee rings she'd have to scrub later. The next night, a sales guy named Ryan Brooks, tall, loud, all teeth, spilled a soda can near the elevator, grinning as Ava mopped it up. "Oops," he said, not even pretending it was an accident. The crew noticed too. Late on night 7, Ava sat in the break room, a concrete box on the 10th floor with flickering lights and a sticky table. Her shift was half done, her hands wrapped around a lukewarm coffee from a vending machine. James Carter, no relation, a wiry janitor in his 50s with gray stubble, slid onto the bench across from her. He'd been at Carter Tech 15 years, his eyes tired but kind. "You're new," he said, popping a soda tab. "Reed's got you in his sights already, huh?" Ava nodded, sipping her drink, the bitter taste grounding her. "He's intense," James chuckled, a dry sound. "Intense is polite. Guy's a bully, loves picking on fresh meat. Watch yourself. He'll ride you till you break or quit." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Last girl, Sarah, lasted 6 weeks. He made her cry in front of the whole night crew. She's gone now." Ava's grip tightened on her cup, her knuckles whitening. "Thanks for the heads up," she said, keeping Lisa's soft tone. Inside, she filed it away. Sarah, 6 weeks. Tears. More cracks in the Carter Tech facade. The next night, she saw it firsthand. Thomas stormed into the 40th floor lounge, where Ava was polishing a glass door. He carried a stack of folders, his face red from some unseen fight. "You," he barked, spotting her. "This place stinks. Did you even clean in here?" The room smelled of lemon polish, the counters gleaming, but Ava knew better than to argue. "I'll check it again, sir," she said, stepping aside. He didn't wait. He dropped the folders onto a table, grabbed a half-full coffee pot from the counter, and tipped it over. Brown liquid splashed across the floor, splattering her cart, dripping down her sneakers again. "There," he said, his voice cold. "Now it's dirty. Fix it, properly this time." He walked out, leaving the pot rolling on its side, the mess pooling at her feet. Ava stood there, the sting of coffee on her shins, a cruel echo of night 1. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from a rage she could barely leash. She wanted to chase him, slam that pot against his smug face, scream who she really was. But she knelt instead, rag in hand, sopping up the spill. The tower was silent, no one to see, no one to stop him. She pulled her phone out, her fingers slick, and texted Henry. "He's a monster. I'm building the list." Henry's reply buzzed back. "Stay strong. We're halfway there." Ava wiped her hands, her jaw tight, and pushed her cart to the next room. She was invisible, sure, but that was her edge. Thomas, Claire, Ryan, they didn't know she saw everything. Every slight, every power trip, every crack in the empire her dad had built. She wasn't breaking. She was watching, waiting, her mop moving like a soldier's march. 1 week down, 1 to go, and she'd make them regret every drop of coffee they'd spilled. The Carter Tech Tower stood silent at 1 a.m., its glass walls reflecting the Atlanta skyline. But on the 38th floor, Ava Jackson felt the weight of every shadow. 9 nights into her undercover stint as Lisa Brown, her gray janitor uniform was a second skin, coffee-stained, bleach-scented, and heavy with sweat. Her hands, once smooth from executive desks, were now cracked and raw, her mop a constant companion as she scrubbed the marble halls. The ache in her back was a dull roar, but her eyes stayed sharp, cataloging every move, every word. Thomas Reed had made her his project. Night after night, he'd hunted her down, his polished loafers clicking like a predator's claws. On night 8, he'd cornered her in the executive lounge, his tie loose, his breath sour with whiskey. "This table's filthy," he'd barked, swiping a finger across a spotless surface, then flicking invisible dust at her. "Do it again, properly." She'd nodded, her Lisa voice soft, and polished it twice more while he watched, smirking, his phone buzzing with ignored texts. When she finished, he'd grabbed a soda can from his desk and poured it across the wood, the sticky fizz bubbling over her clean work. "Oops," he'd said, walking off, leaving her to kneel in the mess. Ava had bitten her tongue, her fists trembling as she wiped it up, but the fire in her chest grew hotter. She'd texted Henry that night, her fingers sticky. "He's relentless. I'm close to breaking character." Henry's reply was steady. "Hold the line. We need more." Night 9 brought new players. Ava was mopping the 40th floor hallway, the air thick with the hum of a printer spitting out late reports, when Claire Evans stormed out of her office. Her heels stabbed the floor, her tight bun glinting under the lights, a stack of papers clutched in her manicured hands. "You're still here?" she snapped, spotting Ava. "This hall's a disaster. Look at these streaks." Ava glanced down. The marble shone like a mirror, but Claire didn't wait for a reply. She dropped her papers onto the wet floor, pages soaking through, ink bleeding. "Pick those up and mop again," she said, her voice ice cold. "I've got a deadline, and you're slowing me down." Ava knelt, gathering the soggy mess, her knees aching against the stone. Claire stood over her, tapping her foot, then turned away, muttering, "Useless," loud enough for the empty hall to echo. Ava's jaw clenched, her rag dripping as she started over, the insult burning deeper than the coffee ever had. She added Claire to her list. Thomas wasn't alone in this tower's rot. The next night, Ryan Brooks upped the ante. Ava was wiping down a glass wall near the sales wing when he swaggered in, his loud laugh bouncing off the walls, a half-eaten burger in hand. At 35, he was all flash, gold watch, slick hair, a grin that screamed overconfidence. He stopped short, eyeing her. "Hey, janitor girl," he called, tossing his burger wrapper onto her clean glass. "Missed a spot." Grease smeared across the surface, a yellow stain mocking her work. Ava paused, rag in hand, her Lisa mask slipping as she met his gaze. "I'll get it, sir," she said, her voice tight. Ryan grinned wider, stepping closer, and dropped a ketchup packet onto the floor, stomping it hard. Red sauce splattered across her sneakers, the wall, the marble. "There," he said, chuckling. "Now you've got something to do." He sauntered off, whistling, leaving her to scrub his mess in silence. She was shaking by the time she finished, her phone buzzing against her thigh. She ducked into a supply closet, the air thick with ammonia, and checked Henry's text. "You okay?" Her reply was short. "Barely. They're animals." Night 10 was her breaking point. Ava was cleaning the executive restroom, porcelain sinks, gold fixtures, a space that screamed wealth, when Thomas burst in, his face flushed, a coffee mug swinging in his hand. "This place reeks," he growled, though it smelled of pine cleaner. He didn't wait for her to respond. He tipped the mug, black coffee splashing across the sink, the mirror, her arms. The heat seared her skin, her gasp echoing off the tiles, but Thomas just laughed, a low, ugly sound. "Fix it, Lisa," he said, dropping the mug onto the counter with a crack. "You're useless otherwise." Ava stood there, coffee dripping from her elbows, her uniform soaked, her sneakers slipping in the puddle. Her hands balled into fists, her breath ragged, every fiber screaming to rip off the scarf and end him right there. But she knelt, rag trembling, and started wiping, her mind racing. This wasn't just cruelty, it was a pattern, a culture. She pulled her phone out, her wet fingers fumbling, and hit record, tucking it back into her pocket as Thomas's footsteps faded. The real twist came later that night. Ava was emptying trash in the sales wing, her cart rattling when she overheard voices from Ryan's office. The door was cracked, light spilling out, and she edged closer, her mop still as she listened. Ryan's laugh rang out, followed by Thomas's growl. "We've got 6 months tops," Thomas said, his tone sharp. "Henry's on his way out. Heart's weak, succession's coming. We move the funds now, pin it on the low levels, and cash out before the kid takes over." Ryan snorted. "What about Claire? She's in?" "She's got the offshore account ready," Thomas said. "And Susan in HR will bury any complaints. We've got dirt on half the board. Henry won't see it coming." Ava's blood ran cold, her mop frozen in her hands. Funds? Offshore accounts? They weren't just bullies. They were thieves, plotting to gut Carter Tech before she could step in. She slid her phone out, the recorder still running, and backed away, her heart pounding. This was bigger than coffee stains or ketchup. This was betrayal, raw and deep, aimed at her dad's legacy. She ducked into the break room, her hands shaking as she replayed the audio. Thomas's voice crackled through, every word a nail in his coffin. She texted Henry. "Caught them. They're stealing. Planning to frame others. Audio's gold." His reply was instant. "Good work. We've got them now." Night 11, Ava faced Susan Miller, the HR head. She'd slipped into Susan's office to empty a trash bin, the room a mess of files and coffee cups, when Susan looked up from her desk, her glasses glinting. "You're the new one Reed hates," she said, her voice smooth, too friendly. "He complained about you, said you're slow. I can make it go away if you keep your head down." Ava nodded, Lisa's meekness in place. "Thank you, ma'am." But Susan's smile didn't reach her eyes, and Ava knew she was part of it, covering tracks for Thomas and the rest. By night 12, Ava was a coil of rage and resolve. Thomas caught her in the lounge again, dumping a soda can onto a couch she'd just cleaned. "Redo it," he snapped, walking off. She did, her recorder catching his every grunt. Claire barked at her for a smudge that wasn't there. Ryan tossed a pen at her cart, laughing. Susan watched from a distance, her silence deafening. Ava texted Henry from the supply closet, her uniform sticky with soda. 2 days left. They're all in. Thomas, Claire, Ryan, Susan, stealing and worse. I'm ready to end this. Henry's reply was firm. "Bring it home, Ava. We'll burn it down together." She leaned against the wall, her mop dripping, her list complete. They thought she was nothing, a stain to wipe away. They didn't know she was Ava Jackson, and their empire was about to crash. The Carter Tech Tower hummed with its usual late-night quiet on Ava Jackson's 13th night as Lisa Brown, but inside her, a storm was brewing. Her gray janitor uniform clung to her skin, sticky with soda from Thomas Reed's latest tantrum, her sneakers leaving faint trails of dried coffee and ketchup on the 38th floor marble. 12 nights of humiliation, spilled drinks, smeared grease, barked orders, had hardened her resolve into steel. Her hands, raw from bleach, gripped her mop like a weapon. But her real power was tucked in her pocket, a phone loaded with audio of Thomas, Claire Evans, Ryan Brooks, and Susan Miller plotting to bleed Carter Tech dry. She'd caught them on night 10, Thomas's voice, smug and sharp, laying out their scheme to siphon funds, frame low-level staff, and cash out before Henry Jackson's succession handed her the reins. Claire had the offshore account, Ryan the contacts, Susan the cover. It wasn't just cruelty anymore. It was theft, betrayal, a knife aimed at her dad's legacy. Ava had spent the last 2 nights building her case, her recorder running as she cleaned, capturing every grunt, every laugh, every damning word. Now, in the supply closet, the air thick with ammonia, Ava leaned against a shelf, her scarf slipping as she replayed the latest clip. Thomas's growl crackled through. Henry's done. 6 months tops. We move now, or we're stuck under his kid. Her jaw tightened, her breath steadying as she texted Henry. 2 days left. They're all in. Thomas, Claire, Ryan, Susan, stealing and worse. I'm ready to end this. His reply buzzed back fast. Bring it home, Ava. We'll burn it down together. She slipped the phone back into her pocket, her mind racing. 2 weeks undercover had shown her the rot, arrogance, abuse, a culture that crushed anyone without a corner office. But the audio was dynamite, enough to blow it all open. She needed a stage, a moment to drop the mask and strike. She pushed her cart out, her mop moving mechanically, her eyes scanning the tower's layout. Executive suites, boardroom, every inch a battlefield she'd turn against them. That night, after her shift, Ava didn't go home. She took a rideshare 6 blocks from Carter Tech, ducking into a 24-hour diner to shed Lisa's skin. In the bathroom, she peeled off the uniform, revealing a black sweater and jeans stashed in her bag. The scarf came off, her curls springing free, her cheap contacts swapped for her sleek glasses. Her hand shook as she scrubbed the soda from her skin. The mirror, reflecting a woman reborn. Not the heiress yet, but no longer the ghost. She caught a cab to Henry's Buckhead mansion, the city lights blurring past, her heart pounding with purpose. Henry was waiting in his office, the room a fortress of dark wood and glass overlooking Atlanta. At 62, his broad frame filled the leather chair, his gray hair catching the desk lamp's glow. Papers littered his desk, reports he'd ignored since his heart attack, now replaced by a single goal: saving his company. He stood when Ava walked in, his brown eyes searching her face, worry etching his laugh lines deeper. "You look beat," he said, his voice a low rumble. "They're running you ragged." "They're running themselves into the ground," Ava said, dropping her bag and pulling out her phone. She set it on the desk, the audio files glowing on the screen. "Listen to this." She hit play, Thomas's voice filling the room, plotting with Ryan about funds and timelines. Henry's fist clenched, his knuckles whitening as Claire's name dropped, then Susan's. When it ended, he leaned back, exhaling hard, his chest tight with a fury Ava recognized. "They're stealing from me," he said, his tone quiet but lethal. "From us. Framing workers to cover it. My people." Ava nodded, pacing the room, her sneakers silent on the hardwood. "It's not just money, Dad. It's power. They think you're weak, that I'm green. Thomas has been dumping coffee on me like I'm trash. Claire's ruined my work for fun. Ryan's a clown with ketchup packets. Susan's burying complaints to protect them. I've got it all. Dates, times, voices." Henry stood, moving to the window, the city sprawling below. "I knew it was bad," he said, his reflection stern in the glass. "Turnover's up, morale's shot. But this is war." He turned, his eyes locking hers. "What's your move?" Ava stopped pacing, her hands on her hips, her voice steady. "We take it to the board. Emergency meeting Monday morning. Last day of my 2 weeks. I stay Lisa till the end. Keep them blind. Then I walk in, play the audio, and watch them squirm. We fire them, Thomas, Claire, Ryan, Susan, all at once. Henry's grin was slow, fierce. Public? Public, Ava said, her lips curling. Boardroom, full attendance. They've hidden behind closed doors too long. Let the light burn them out. He nodded, crossing to his desk, grabbing a notepad. We'll need security. Those 4 won't go quiet. And the board's got to be prepped, but not tipped off. I'll call it as an urgent review. Leadership concerns. They'll think it's about my health. He scribbled fast, then looked up. You've got enough? Ava tapped her phone. More than enough. Thomas pouring coffee on me. 3 times. Recorded. Claire's paper dump. Ryan's ketchup stunt. Susan's keep your head down pitch. Plus the conspiracy. Dates. Accounts. Their whole plan to shaft you. It's airtight. Henry set the pen down, his shoulders squaring. Then we've got them. Monday, 10 a.m., boardroom. You finish your shift. Play Lisa till the clock hits 0. I'll have security on standby. 2 guards discreet outside the door. He paused, his voice softening. You sure you can take one more night? Ava's eyes flashed, her jaw tight. I've taken 12. One more's nothing. I'll mop their floors with a smile, if it means they're gone by noon. Henry chuckled, a rare sound, but his pride was clear. You're tougher than I was at your age. I'd have punched Reed by now. Thought about it, Ava said, smirking. But this hits harder. They spent the next hour planning. Henry mapped the meeting, board members to call, vague wording to keep the agenda murky. Ava synced her audio to a laptop, backing it up twice, her fingers flying over keys she hadn't touched in weeks. They rehearsed her reveal, when to drop the scarf, when to play the files, how to pivot from Lisa's meekness to Ava's command. By 3 a.m., the city quiet outside, they had a script. Henry opens, Ava strikes, the board decides. Before she left, Henry pulled her into a hug, his grip firm. You're not just saving Carter Tech, he said, his voice thick. You're proving you're the one to lead it. I'm proud, Ava. Prouder than you know. She hugged him back, her throat tight. We're doing this together, Dad. They messed with the wrong family. Sunday night, Ava returned to the tower, her uniform on, her cart rattling. She cleaned the 38th floor, her mop moving slow, deliberate, her phone recording Thomas's last growl. This glass is streaky, redo it. She nodded, her Lisa mask perfect, but inside, she was counting hours. One more shift, one more dance with their arrogance, and then she'd bring the hammer down. Henry sat at home, staring at the skyline, his daughter's voice echoing in his head. Monday loomed, a reckoning he'd never seen coming, but one he'd trust Ava to finish. Monday morning broke over Atlanta, the Carter Tech Tower gleaming in the sunlight, its 42 floors a silent stage for the storm about to hit. Ava Jackson rolled her cleaning cart onto the 38th floor at 8 a.m., her last shift as Lisa Brown, her gray uniform stiff with dried soda and coffee stains. Her hands, rough from 2 weeks of bleach, gripped the mop handle, but her sharp brown eyes burned beneath the scarf covering her curls. She'd endured 13 nights of humiliation, Thomas's spills, Claire's snubs, Ryan's laughs, Susan's lies, and today, she'd end it. She moved slow, deliberate, wiping down glass doors and emptying trash bins, her phone heavy in her pocket with audio that'd bury them. The boardroom loomed ahead, a sleek oval of walnut and leather on the 42nd floor, where Henry Jackson had called an emergency meeting at 10 a.m. Ava's heart thudded, not from nerves, but from a cold, focused fury. She'd play Lisa one last time, then drop the mask and watch them fall. At 9:30, Thomas Reed stormed in, his suit crisp, a coffee cup swinging in his hand. He spotted Ava polishing the boardroom table, his gray eyes narrowing. "What's this?" he barked, running a finger along the wood, though it gleamed under the lights. "This is a disaster. CEO's coming, and you've got smudges everywhere. Redo it now." Ava nodded, her Lisa voice soft. "Yes, sir. I'll fix it." She wiped the table again, her rag moving in tight circles, her recorder catching his every grunt. Thomas loomed over her, his breath sharp with mint, then turned away, muttering, "Can't even hire decent help." She smiled to herself, faint and fierce. His clock was ticking. By 9:50, the boardroom buzzed with arrivals. Executives filed in, Claire in her heels, Ryan flashing his gold watch, Susan clutching a notepad, her glasses glinting. Board members followed, gray-haired and stern, whispering about Henry's cryptic leadership concerns email. Ava stayed in the corner, dusting a bookshelf, her scarf low, her presence a shadow they ignored. Henry entered last, his broad frame filling the doorway, his gray hair catching the light. His eyes flicked to Ava, a quick nod no one caught. Then he took his seat at the head of the table. At 10 sharp, Henry's voice cut through the murmurs, deep and steady. "This meeting's about Carter Tech's future. We've got evidence of a rot in our ranks, abuse, theft, betrayal of everything I built." The room stilled, Claire's pen pausing, Ryan's grin faltering. Thomas leaned back, arms crossed, his smirk intact. Susan adjusted her glasses, her face blank. "Get her out," Thomas snapped, jabbing a finger at Ava. "This is sensitive. Janitors don't belong here." Heads turned, eyes dismissing her, expecting her to scurry off. Ava set her rag down, her hand steady and straightened to her full height. "Actually," she said, her voice clear, sharp, no trace of Lisa's meekness, "I think I'll stay, Thomas." She pulled the scarf off, her curls spilling free, and swapped her cheap contacts for sleek glasses from her pocket. Gasps rippled through the room as she unzipped the uniform, revealing a tailored blazer and slacks beneath. "I'm Ava Jackson, Henry's daughter, and your new CEO." The silence was electric, jaws dropping, eyes wide. Thomas's face drained of color, his coffee cup slipping in his hand. Claire's papers hit the table, Ryan's watch clinked as he froze, Susan's notepad fell. Ava stepped forward, her heels clicking, and set her phone on the table, her voice cutting the air. "I've spent 2 weeks as Lisa, cleaning your messes, literally. I've got proof of what you've done to this company." She tapped her phone, Thomas's voice booming out. "Henry's done. 6 months, tops. We move the funds now, pin it on the low levels." The boardroom tensed, head swiveling to Thomas, his smirk gone, his hands gripping the chair. Ava advanced the file. Thomas again, night 10. "Fix it, Lisa, you're useless," followed by the splash of coffee on tile. A board member winced, another scribbled furiously. "That's assault," Ava said, her gaze locking Thomas's. 3 times recorded. Coffee, soda, trash cans kicked over. "You thought I was nothing." She tapped again. Claire's snap. "Mop again. You're slowing me down." Then Ryan's laugh as ketchup splattered. "Claire ruined my work for sport," Ava said. Ryan turned cleaning into a game. The audio shifted, Susan's smooth tone. "Keep your head down. I'll make it go away." Ava's voice hardened. Susan buried complaints to shield them. The boardroom erupted, whispers turning to murmurs, faces darkening. Ava played the final clip. Thomas, Ryan, Claire plotting. "Offshore accounts ready. Susan's got the dirt. Henry won't see it." She stopped the audio, her eyes sweeping the room. "They've been stealing. Millions, funneled out, set to blame the staff you never notice. I've got dates, accounts, proof." Thomas shot up, his chair scraping. "That's lies. Edited. Out of context." His voice cracked, his hands shaking. "She's a janitor. Assault's not context." Ava cut in, calm and cold. Theft's not a misunderstanding. Sit down, Thomas. He sank back, his face red, sweat beading. Claire tried next, her voice shrill. This is a setup! I'd never. Ava tapped her phone, Claire's paper drop replaying. Never? I cleaned your ink off that floor. Claire shut up, her bun trembling. Ryan stammered. It was a joke. The ketchup. A joke's not recorded conspiracy, Ava said, her stare pinning him. Susan stayed silent, her glasses fogging, her hands clasped tight. Henry stood, his presence towering. Ava went undercover at my request, to see what I couldn't. I built Carter Tech on respect, innovation, trust. You've trashed it, abused my people, stole from my company. He nodded to Ava. She's got my vote. What's yours? A gray-haired board member, Bill Thompson, spoke first, his voice gruff. I've heard enough. Termination. Reed, Evans, Brooks, Miller. Now. Nods rippled around the table, hands raised, a unanimous wave. Thomas bolted up again, desperate. 30 years, Henry. I've given 30 years. You can't. You've taken more than you gave, Henry said, his tone steel. Security's outside. You're done. The door opened, 2 guards stepping in, their radios crackling. Thomas's shoulders slumped, his fight gone as they flanked him. Claire stood, her heels wobbling, papers scattering as she was let out. Ryan muttered, This is crazy, his watch glinting as he stumbled after. Susan rose last, her notepad clutched, her silence a confession as she followed. The room emptied of them, the air heavy with shock and relief. Board members approached Ava, some shaking her hand, others murmuring apologies. Bill clapped her shoulder. You've got guts, kid. Good work. Henry moved to her side, his hand on her arm, his voice low. You did it, Ava. Cleaned house. Better than I ever could. She met his eyes, her lips twitching into a faint smile. They handed me the mop. I just used it. The guard shut the door. The tower quiet again. But the echo of justice lingered, loud and clear. 3 months after the boardroom reckoning, Carter Tech's Atlanta tower felt alive again. Ava Jackson walked the 38th floor, her gray janitor uniform swapped for a sharp navy blazer. Her curls free, her heels clicking with purpose. The coffee stains and soda spills were gone from her memory, replaced by nods from staff who'd once stepped over her cart. At 27, she'd taken the CEO chair, her dad's legacy now hers to reshape. The air wasn't perfect. Old habits lingered, but it was cleaner, brighter. A shift she'd fought for. Thomas Reed, Claire Evans, Ryan Brooks, and Susan Miller were history, escorted out that Monday, their offices stripped by noon. Thomas had landed at a failing startup, his swagger crushed. Claire's social media went dark, her heels silent. Ryan's flash faded at a low-rent sales gig, his watch pawned. Susan vanished, her HR polish no match for the scandal. Their empire of arrogance was dust, and Ava had swept it away. She didn't stop at firing. A week after the meeting, Ava sat with James Carter, the night janitor who'd warned her about Thomas. You've seen it all, she'd said, handing him coffee in the break room. What's broken? James had hesitated, then spilled. Low pay, no voice, fear of speaking up. Others joined, custodians, clerks, faces she'd known as Lisa. She listened, her notepad filling, her resolve growing. By month 2, changes rolled out. Ava launched a staff council, janitors to execs, equal seats, meeting monthly to air gripes and ideas. Pay bumped up for night crews, turnover dropped, smiles returned. She walked floors daily, greeting cleaners by name, her, "Hi, James," as warm as her, "Good morning, Bill," to the board. The 38th floor lounge got a plaque. Built by all for all, a nod to the hands that kept it running. One evening, Henry Jackson pulled up to the tower in his truck, his gray hair glinting under the streetlights. Ava met him at the curb, her blazer swapped for a sweater, her old uniform folded in her arms. "Keepin' that?" he asked, his deep voice teasing. "Reminder," she said, tucking it into her bag. "Never forgetting where I started." Henry grinned, clapping her shoulder. "You've turned it around, Ava. I built it, but you're making it better." She looked up at the tower, its lights steady. "It's not mine yet," she said. "It's theirs, the ones who mop, code, answer phones. I just gave them a shot." Henry nodded, pride in his eyes. "That's leadership, kid. Not titles. Trust." Ava smiled, the city humming around them. Thomas had ruled by fear. She'd rebuilt with respect. Her legacy wasn't a clean sweep. It was a company where every voice mattered, and that was enough. Toj, CEO's daughter, goes undercover as a janitor, fires everyone. Mo Tia. Ava Jackson, the daughter of Carter Tech's CEO, disguises herself as janitor Lisa to inspect the company before taking over. She gets coffee poured on her by manager Thomas Reed, humiliated by Claire and Ryan, only to discover their corruption plot. With the recording evidence, Ava exposes them in the conference room, fires them all, and makes Carter Tech a fairer place. From the floor to the CEO's chair, see how Ava retaliates. Like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss this epic story of justice.